My name is Judy Fleming. I'm a ceramic artist and I live in Oakland, California. So I've been doing ceramics for about 12 years. I started in high school and community college right after high school and continued to do it because it was something that made me feel grounded and whole, and I love giving gifts to people and I love making things for people that they can gift. And I also believe that ceramics connects us to our food as well. Just a handmade object to eat and drink with connects us to the thing that we've made. So it kind of enriches the process. It's my passion and my love, and it's something that I want to do forever. I've never been to China before. I'm really excited to go. I've always wanted to study from master ceramic artists, and I've always wanted to learn more from different people that have different techniques. I haven't been exposed to Chinese porcelain art very much, and it's just been a dream of mine to also go to China and to see what it's like there, to learn about the clay there and to do more research. And I'm also excited to eat some of the food and get to see some of the environment there. I'm going to Jingdajian in Jiangxi province. I'm going to meet a ceramics porcelain master. His name is Wang Yingpeng, and I'm going for 12 days. Jingdajian is the center of ceramics porcelain in China. It's been around for over 1,000 years. It used to be kind of the mecca of production. It's a place that still has a lot of that history, but a lot of the industry has been dispersed around other parts of China, and they're looking for kind of reviving ceramics porcelain there. Master Huang Yingpeng is a master ceramic artist in that he does reproductions of porcelain ceramics in the very old style. So he takes some of the old works of the old dynasties and recreates them with the old style of porcelain and hand-painted porcelain as well. He seems to be just part of the community and interested in reviving the porcelain ceramics there. I'm beyond excited about this trip to go to China. I have no idea what's in store for me. I'm not sure what to expect. I'm really looking forward to learning more about ceramics and learning more about the craft, and also to try to figure out some parts of my business that I want to create. Really looking forward to it. Today was my first day in Jingdajian, and I came to Huang Yingpeng's exhibition hall. And there's kind of a beautiful garden and koi pond outside. And I came in and I just got to see all this beautiful ceramics, all this porcelain that has a lot of history behind it. A lot of the work is replicas of old ceramics from the Ming Dynasty and the Yuan Dynasty. I think it's beautiful. It's very large shape. The paintings are nice. The plants remind me of like seaweed almost. Yeah, and the fruit and all the details. Yeah, this is a beautiful piece. I'm really blown away by it. I liked the leaves and all of the detail and how simple it is with the blue and the little koi fish. But I think it'd be really fun to try to recreate a piece like this, go into the process of how it was originally made, and to kind of relive that painting of such an ancient work of art. And I got to finally meet Master Huang Yingpeng.
Ah, 好，你好。
你好 ，Nice to meet you.
你好
Welcome.
我们这些产品呢，不管是仿古瓷、 还是永固创新的新产品，都是按照景德镇的这个传统的手工制手工艺制作起来的。
Basically, he's a painter and he paints on these ceramic pieces. And he told me about his work as a painter and a little bit about his history. And he also showed me some of his ceramic work.
这个瓷器是元代的这个后期的典型的作品。
So Master Huang told me that this is a copy from the Yuan dynasty. It is a very rare piece originally because of the characters that are in it. And the characters tell a story. And so if you look at it, you can see different people, horses. I think he said this one is about a woman who goes to the west.
造型纹饰啊，胎釉啊，都和原件一样。
And this one here is from the Ming dynasty. He said it's 5 different colors, and each of the underglazes he formulated himself. But you can see all the different colors and how they kind of bleed in different ways.
元青花的料啊，元代是伊朗进口的。
And this one is from the Yuan dynasty. It's also telling a story and has different characters as well. There are symbols here that represent different religious things. The ceramics here, there are a lot of different styles, different sizes. Some are very small, some are big. Some of the old dynasty porcelain ceramics. A lot of the other work here is just different designs, different colors. So some is very basic, some is very simple. Others are very, very detailed with a lot of different colors in them. So just a great variety. After we got to see the exhibition room, we went upstairs and he has a little workshop up there where his students come who are also his workers, his apprentices. And they come and learn different techniques from him there. In the room, he was teaching a little lesson on how to draw and paint some of his ceramics. And he had taken some of the old dynasty ceramics and put them on the table for people to look at, to see close up the designs. And he talked about the paintings on them and how they are painted. And so basically it's one color that they use and the thickness determines how dark it will be. And he also told me a little bit about perspective and about drawing, and he did a little drawing on the board of a leaf and talked a little bit about the perspective of the leaf. It's kind of like dancing, so it's not going to look just straight or flat, and that we're painters and that we should think about it in a more three-dimensional way. So to put perspective on it, shorter on one side and larger on the other side. And then I was surprised he had me get up and kind of do a little drawing. That was interesting, and he helped correct my drawing as well. But I could tell from that his talent and his passion for his work. I got to see his little library where he has a lot of the old dynasty ceramics that he uses actually for examples of his own work, to see kind of how it was done, to see the techniques, but to also see different designs that were made back then. So the 14th, 15th century, from then on. Pretty amazing work, and it's pretty great to see just the depth and the history behind all of this classic porcelain work. As a ceramic artist myself, I'm constantly just being creative and creating new things, and I'm very rarely thinking about my history. And it's something that I really appreciate about meeting Master Huang, is that his work is so steeped in his history and his lineage. A special element that he brings to his work that I can tell creates that kind of passion for his work. And it would be really great to take that element into more of what I'm doing. You know, instead of trying to create new things all the time and being contemporary, trying to think more about the history behind it and how far it's come. And you could even bring back some of those old techniques into present-day contemporary work as well. So we came here to the Gaolin clay mine to see where some of the clay comes from. The bus ride was really fun. It took about an hour to get here from Jingdezhen. It's really beautiful scenery, very tranquil. A lot of the old steps that kind of wind around are going all over, and I think they go to different sites. The mining of clay began in the Yuan dynasty. It flourished in the Ming and Qing dynasties. So this is an old relic site where they used to harvest some of the Gaolin clay. You can see it's kind of a cave inside, and they used to harvest it from the granite stone. So Gaolin clay is the weathering of the granite, and it has a content of aluminum, which helped to make larger pieces of porcelain objects. Gaolin clay was actually named after the Gaolin Mountain, and it flourished from there to all over the world.
就是把这个土放在这里，出土放在这里，然后用水冲洗淘，这细土就流下去了。
Master Huang just told me about this washing site. So they would take some of the harvest from the mine nearby, and they would sift it here in this big pool. They would fill it with water. After the clay was sifted and some of the sand was out of the clay, it would float down into this lower pool, after which it would dry a little and they would be able to use it in production. So after going to the Gaolin clay ruins, we then went to a museum right outside of Jingdezhen in Hutian. Inside you walk in and there's kind of a workshop area where you get to see these figurines of different stages of the ceramic process. So when you go in, if you go to the left, there is a big ancient relic ruin site. There is where there's a big old kiln that dates back to the 5 dynasties, where you can see different areas of the workshop space. So you can see kind of how large the workshop space was. And it's kind of partitioned off from old ceramic pieces that were once used. And you can see down lower was the older dynasties, and then up a little bit higher were the newer ones of the Ming dynasty. And then if you keep going inside, you go to the actual kiln room. The kiln itself has an ash pit, and the kiln is shaped like a gourd where you can sense where the wood came in to stoke the kiln. And then the larger part is where the ceramic pieces would go in. Also on that kiln you can see how a tree was being uprooted underneath it and how it was harvested. So there was much more to the kiln that we couldn't see, but it was just very interesting to know how big and how things were fired back then. Then when you go back into the museum and you pass through to the right side, you see more of the nature of the Song dynasty, as well as the Yuan dynasty was there as well. And it had similar areas that were worked as the Ming dynasty area, but it seemed to be a little bit more spread out, and again had brick wall areas for different rooms where they would workshop making ceramic pieces and glazing ceramic pieces and the whole process. The Hutian kiln, they oftentimes fired a lot of the blue and the white ceramics. So inside the museum, I was able to see a lot of those variations of ceramics, but also to get an idea of what those old ceramics look like. And another thing I was surprised to see was a lot of engravings in some of the work, and a lot of the glazes themselves were kind of like a light, almost like translucent blue color. A lot of them were pretty small. Some of them were jars, and I had to ask what they were used for. I didn't know that they would be used for wine, but they had a lid that was like a whole separate cup going into another jar. Also, when you go right into the museum, you get to see old molds stacked on top of each other. Sometimes in clay you get what's called reduction and oxidation, so it's really hot and then has more oxidation on one side, which gives it a different color from one side to the other. But they wanted their ceramics to be really clean and have less effects from the elements, and so they'd put them within these little molds to keep their glaze perfect. Today was such an amazing day. I feel so inspired. I got to see so many different things. First, we started with getting to see some of Master Huang's workshop. First, they were kneading the clay, or what we call wedging the clay. And then right next to him, there was a wheel set up where a person was throwing on the wheel, and he was throwing these really large pots. He had the speed turned up pretty fast for the duration that he was throwing. He looked very, very comfortable doing it. And he told me that he did it for 6 days a week, for like 6 to 8 hours a day. So he must have just so much experience and had been doing it for around 8 to 10 years. I think he said he started when he was 14 years old. We got to see a little bit of the trimming. There was 2 trimming stations. The first one, he was trimming this big trash can, I guess. It was a commissioned piece. He'd never done it before. It was his first time doing that particular design. And I had to ask about it because he had some liquid clay that he was using, which we call slip, and he was using it to join 2 pieces together. And he joined them together and then trimmed them after. And after that, we went and saw the second trimmer. And he was doing smaller pieces, and he had these amazing tools that I had never seen before. So this tool is used for trimming the outside, but this one hasn't been sharpened yet. They have these ridges in it in order to make it faster when they trim. And then this is a finished one, and it's for trimming the inside. And after I was really interested in the trimming tools, he let me come in and trim one myself. We went straight through into another room where they have the kiln room, and they just happened to be unloading a kiln at that time. They have 3 different kilns that they use that are probably running pretty constantly, and the ware that he was taking out of the kiln had been sitting and cooling for 24 hours. So by the time we got to see them, they were just a little bit warm. And the man who works there, he takes the pieces out of the kiln and he's the inspector. So he looks at all of the pieces and makes sure that the glaze is okay, that everything is even, that nothing is cracked. And they were beautifully done. A lot of the pieces were not at all damaged. They look totally pristine. After that, we got to see a little bit of the glaze room. And this is a way that we do it also. I've seen it done before in this way where they just have a room and it's a glaze booth for airbrushing. So they take glaze and they put it in an airbrush can and are able to just lightly put the glaze on top of what they call underglaze. So a lot of the pieces before they have the glaze on top have this detail underglaze work underneath. And he had the booth there and he was going up and down with the glaze, trying to get all the even glaze all around the piece. We went upstairs where there were many different people hand painting all these different pieces. And it was really inspiring when you walk up into the room. It's just so many different pieces were just lining the different areas and had many different people sitting, and they were all very, very focused. And some people were working on brand new pieces that were commissioned, so they were working just freehand. And then some people were working on these old like dynasty pieces. They had to work very meticulously and everything had to be perfect. They were using patterns that were already printed for them and they were just painting on top. So not only that, but there were some people that were doing different techniques. It's kind of a reductive way of glazing. So they'd put the glaze on and then take it away. So make different patterns from the glaze that was on top. And I was really impressed by the way that they painted. Their hands were so steady. It seemed like they each had a lot of practice. One lady I talked with, she had been painting for 20 years. It's a very long time. And even before then, she said she would always draw and paint, and sometimes she goes home and also does drawings and paintings. So yeah, they're artists and it's a big part of their lives. We got to see some of how slip casting was done. When they make pieces that are replications from those dynasties, they try to do it the exact same way as it was done back then. And the Yuan dynasty is one where they use slip casting. So I got to watch someone wedge the clay and then use the mold and put the clay inside of the mold. So he smushes it down inside evenly, and he took some time to put the clay really nicely inside and kind of trim it away as he was going. And waits for that to dry. And as the piece dries, it will kind of shrink a little bit, and they're able to just take off the other mold pieces. And then he puts them together with the same slip as they used for when they were trimming the pieces. And it should just be a beautiful shape, which is a much faster way of making a piece actually. And this way you can also get the same piece over and over and over again. So it's very easy to make many that are just the exact same. I was invited to lunch, so I got to go to Master Huang's house with his wife. Yeah. Thank you. And I got to learn how to make dumplings, which was really fun. It was fun to see, and Master Huang's wife helped me put the pork inside with the vegetables and close them up. It was a great way to just experience being in the home and get to be invited and feel welcomed in the space. So that was a really special time to get to meet them. Then we had lunch with Master Huang, and we got to eat some of the dumplings that we got to make together. It's good, the dumpling is fresh. It's a little salty, and it has some of the green onion inside, which gives it a little bit more flavor. It's very good. Thank you. We went to Master Huang's gallery space, so we got to see some of his work. This is his work that's like his original paintings, which is kind of more his style. And it was really great to see how his style was really free brushstrokes. So I got to see these fish that look similar to me as like a mackerel fish, but they're very common to this region. One was a big painting of the different seasons, and they're really big in size, and a lot of detail work on them. And I got to see the fish on these big ceramic pots, as well as some plum blossom trees that he had painted on different ceramics. And he said that he likes to paint the blossoms on longer pieces that are more suitable for that length of the tree. Whereas for the fish, he likes to paint on rounder surfaces, such as round pots, because he feels that the fish are kind of dancing on the pieces, which I really like that feeling of the objects dancing and the perspective of that as well. Oh, yeah, you can see. After we got to see his gallery space, I feel very fortunate I also got to go and spend some time in his studio and watch him work. It was very meditative, and you could tell that he had done it for a very long time, that it was something that he was very passionate about, it's something he loved to do, and all of us were just totally quiet when we watched him work. had me come over, watched him paint the plum blossom tree. He started with the branches, but it was like a rough area that he painted. And then I watched him continue that on, but leave spaces out. And it was a surprise to me when he started painting the actual blossoms. It was like he knew exactly where the blossoms went, where the layers were. So it's just a great experience to see his process and how he painted in layers. Some things look like they're farther away and some things look like they're closer up. I didn't know he was going to give it to me, but he offered me the ceramic piece that he made with me there, and I feel very fortunate to get to receive such a gift, because it's an honor for me to have something that he made and something that I saw him make. Master Huang just gifted me this beautiful plate. I saw his work in his gallery and commented that I really liked the plum blossom tree, and so he said he painted this one especially for me. Before I left, I had made him some things. Actually, I made him more things, but I just gave him a couple things because I try to keep it basic and things that he could use. I gave him a cup that I made, and this is a design that I've made before. It feels good in your hand to hold, and I thought he could maybe use it for tea. And then I also gave him a little incense holder where when you put the incense in, the ashes from the incense falls into the incense holder. So I hope he likes it. Today we went to another area of Master Huang's company. We started on the first floor and we saw another area where there's some people working there on very, very detailed painting of some pots, of different traditional pots. And they were using two paint brushes. One was for pushing the glaze into different areas and one was for cleaning and doing different blending. This area was more an area for filling in different areas that had already been outlined. We went upstairs to the second floor, and on the second floor there was another area where people were painting. There was an intern who was there just practicing some horse paintings, and I saw someone applying some decals on some of these big pots. So decals are basically just little prints of images, and he was pressing them down onto the pots and trying to make them exactly perfect, and afterwards they can paint in the colors for those pieces. We got to go to his museum, which was on the third level of that workshop building. Going in is just this beautiful display of all of these beautiful pieces of art. A lot of them are very, very historical, very important works of art that were brought back to this area. Some that had been auctioned at different places had ended up in Europe or ended up in different parts of China that are now part of his collection. And one of the reasons why he keeps these pieces is to learn more about his craft. It's his passion for ceramics that keeps all of this work here, and he keeps building on it based on what more he wants to learn. So in addition to some of the older dynasty work, he has some pieces of work of his own that is his very favorite pieces, are the ones that he keeps there. He had some big pieces of the freshwater fish and some of his other works of art displayed in the museum. And I personally love museums too. I love looking at objects and I love getting to sit with objects, and I feel like I learn a lot from the experience of getting to go to a museum and to see the history behind it. He taught me a little bit about how to authenticate.
这是元代的青花陈子某单位梅品。
He first brought out one big piece that had been kind of cracked and put back together, and it was from the Yuan dynasty. So he had the original and the replica version that was made with his company. The blue and the white porcelain, as far as the painting itself, were very similar. But one way that you can find the differences is the actual glaze. So the original glaze is a little bit deeper in shade. It's kind of a dark blue, almost black. And it was a little bit runny, this glaze in particular, versus the glaze on the replica had a little bit cleaner, a little bit lighter tone than the original. And you could also tell the difference of the firing. So one was fired with the old wood kiln and one was fired with a new gas kiln. And that's another way that you can tell is just from the remnants of the firing. The second piece he showed was a plate that was worth about $130,000.
这是清代咸丰时期的。
And it had more colors on it, so it wasn't just the blue and the white colors, it had 5 colors, I believe. And it was the 8 treasures, so it was kind of an old folklore tale. It was made for the emperor's dining piece. There are about 100 of them made originally, so they're very, very valuable pieces. And he showed me also on the bottom the different signatures.
这是道光的，这不是咸丰的，是大清道光年制的。
You could tell by also the brightness of the colors of the original had a much brighter tinge to it than the replication, which is another way that you can tell if it's real or if it's fake.
这是现代的陶瓷艺术，这种装饰的形式、绘画的气化都是创新的。
He showed me a little bit of his newer collection where he had some more contemporary pieces, and he walked me through a little bit of the newer work. So the newer work, it's new in the brushstrokes and the style, but the content is still the same. The pieces that he had in particular, there was one of the plum blossom, which is a very old traditional object, and the horse as well. He showed me in particular one large plate that had a horse running towards you, and the brushstrokes, he was saying it was very difficult to paint this animal and to show it in motion with the brushstrokes and to make it seem as though the horse is moving towards you. He showed me a piece that he really, really liked.
这件呢是我仿古的代表作，是这个仿元青花。 鬼谷子下山文的冠。
He painted on it the same exact scene, so it was a war scene. And he also said that the original sold for $40 million, so it's a very expensive piece as well. And the replication itself is worth around $70,000 US. We went on a little field trip. We got to go visit a kiln, which was very close to his company actually. And this kiln was under this little roof. So this is one of 4 or 5 kilns in Jingdezhen. It's called the Zhen kiln, which means town kiln. And there used to be many more of these, but this is one that's still in use. And it's kind of has an egg shape, but it's a wood-fired kiln. So they would bring in pieces and they would kind of surround these in these stackable things that would protect them from the elements and put them inside the wood kiln. They would seal it up and then just feed it with wood from the outside. So it's a high-fired kiln. It gets to be very hot, and it was only used to produce some of the best quality work. And it would fire for at least 23 hours until it was finished. I would love to fire something in a kiln like that. So we came out here to the countryside. It's about a half-hour outside of Jingdezhen. And this is where the porcelain stone is crushed into a finer powder to use for porcelain. And essentially what it is they harvest some of the porcelain stone from the mountain. A man puts it through a machine to make the stone a little bit smaller. And after that, they put it into this area here. And it's powered by this large water wheel here where they diverge some of the river to power the wheel. and it is controlling these bigger hammers that is actually crushing the porcelain stone into very fine powder. After that, they sift it with water twice to get some more of the sand out of the porcelain stone into a product that they can use. The porcelain stone is an element to the porcelain clay that he uses here. So it's very, very local, very close to the workshop here. Today we went to the center of Jingdezhen, where they have the market and a lot of different shops that sell different ceramic objects handmade by different artists in the city. We saw so many different pieces of art. Some of them were the more traditional blue and white pieces, and some were more contemporary designs. There were some porcelain that had more focus on the glazes, some cups that were smaller. It's really delicate. Some tea sets as well. We got to see some jewelry. I love this. Sure. We looked at different stores and I got to pick out some things that I really, really liked. So I'm gonna buy this little thing as a gift. It's a hanging ornamental piece. It kind of looks like a wood-fired piece. I like the little speckles that it has, and it just has a lot of character. But you can put plants inside and kind of hang it. And then I also bought a tea set that had a little teapot as well as 2 small cups. And I just so impressed with a lot of stuff they had there, but I really liked the glaze of these 2 pieces. I just felt really giddy to see everything and to hold all the different objects. It's overwhelming, and I just had a really good time to see all of the different stores here. We went to lunch together and we had lunch at this very good restaurant. And I had never been to a kitchen in China before, so I had no idea that they use these big woks over these different fires. And to see all the different foods that they use to prepare some of the meals, as well as different vegetables that they use to prepare in these giant woks, it was really good to see, and it was really fast-paced as well.
这道菜是名字叫芝士肉焖面。
So this is a local dish. It was often prepared for the people who were stoking the kiln for firing. They would prepare this dish of pork and noodles, and it has also fermented black beans. It's very decadent. And the noodles. It's good. It's very, very rich, very flavorful. The noodles take on a lot of the flavor from the meat as well. And it seems like it would be a very hearty dish to have before such a long firing process. So that would be a good meal to have.
这道菜叫名字叫池泥煨鸡。
This is the most famous dish in Jingdezhen. It is a roasted chicken, and it's roasted with clay around it. Roast for 3 hours.
敲下去。
Like more? Yeah, it's very delicious, very tender. The chicken, you can taste the lotus leaf as well, which it was wrapped in. You get a hint of that flavor. We went to a museum here in Jingdezhen in the center of the city, and it was called the Dragon Pearl Pavilion. When you walk inside, you first see these miniature sculptures. It was made by a professor here in Jingdezhen. It took him 4 years to produce, and it was these little miniature replicas of the old imperial court for how they made the ceramics, how they made the porcelain. So it had each of the stations for the porcelain makers, as well as their living quarters. Not surprising that the entire miniature replica was made from porcelain. We're at the top of the Dragon Pearl Pavilion in the center of Jingdezhen. Jingdezhen is located in the Jiangxi province, which is in northeastern China. It has a population of about 1.5 million people. It's about 2,000 square miles, which is about 10 times the size of the city of San Francisco. Jingdezhen is known as the porcelain capital of the world because it has been producing pottery for over 1,700 years. The city has a well-documented history that stretches back over 2,000 years. So on the top level of the Dragon Pearl Pavilion, there was a piece from the Yuan dynasty in the center of the pavilion. And I asked why so many of the pieces had been broken and just kind of put together. And the person there who was guiding me through told me that oftentimes the emperor would order 10 pieces to be made, and he would pick the one out of the 10 that was the best piece, and then they would break all the others. So often in the archaeological sites, they would find all the broken pieces of the same piece that he had ordered, all in one place. Afterwards, we went downstairs to the old kilns. This is the site of imperial kilns that were used during the Yuan, Ming, and Qing dynasties. Many great porcelain pieces were fired out of these kilns. The kilns themselves were shaped similarly to steamed buns. There were 7 of them here. They fired each about 300 small pieces in each kiln. But many archaeologists have found some great works here that has uncovered some wonderful history of this region. We came back to visit Master Huang in his studio here, and they had just been unloading the kiln. When I was in Master Huang's studio, he painted a plate for me, and we're here at the kiln where it's been firing for 13 hours, and we're gonna see how it turned out. Thank you. It's so beautiful. I love how it turned out, how you can see all the different brush strokes that he used, and the flowers themselves. He only used 2 colors, but you can see how other colors came out from those 2 colors mixing together. It turned out really nicely, and I'm very grateful. Thank you. Today we went first to a market, La Tian Market. We saw a lot of people selling their work, and most of the people selling were college-age students. And yeah, it was a younger crowd of people, and I'm sure a lot of them were selling their work to make money to go to school. And I love that there's an avenue for that to happen. They're not only selling things that are functional, such as plates and cups, they're also selling jewelry and sculpture and little trinkets, little things little gifts that you could buy for your friends or your family. I really envisioned myself kind of being in a setting like this, and it made me really want to spend more time in Jingdezhen, maybe in the future of coming back and getting to learn more from the people there. And I felt kind of like a kinship for the people that were selling the ceramics at this kind of market. And I got to get a few gifts from my family. I picked out a small kind of like decorative vase, as well as some small bowls. They have a lot of nice details here. It's very thin, very nicely made, and has a nice lip as well. And then it has a cute little painting inside of a little fisherman and some trees. I think it will be a nice gift from China. We're here in Caroline Chin's gallery, where we get to see some of her Prosperity series. This piece behind me is a big piece that she made that has over 30,000 porcelain butterflies sewn to it. It's a very old traditional style, made from a burlap sack, and each one of the butterflies is hand sewn. Each porcelain piece is also handmade, and she used the village to create this piece. So in the Western tradition, they use more of a person creates a piece from beginning to end, where here someone will do the kneading of the clay or the wedging, someone will assemble the pieces, someone else will attach the pieces, and it's a whole community or village that puts the piece together. We got to travel to the countryside. Just outside of Jingdezhen, there's an amazing residency, a place where artists can come from around the world to learn about ceramic craft, and it's called Sunbao. And here it's kind of a whimsical place, and it was just like walls of porcelain and different sculpture and ceramics embedded into the walls. It's just ceramics everywhere in new forms and sculptural pieces that I'd never seen before. The work here is inspiring to me because I see these new ways of interpreting ceramic work as avenues for making new work on my own and just getting to use that creative process to push new boundaries in different areas of work. So how many artists come to the residency here?
Well, it's all depending. You know, we can host up to 20 artists in one time.
And I was able to talk with the founder and director. He came here in the late 90s to start this residency, and he first saw it and just had this vision to make this residency a place where people from around the world could come and learn about porcelain and to learn about the ceramics culture here. So it's kind of bringing people back to the roots of porcelain, of ceramics. It made me feel that I want to be more involved in residencies like this, or just to be among artists more, and this is an example of a really great place to do something like that. And I was able to meet one ceramic artist from the Netherlands who is a sculptor. Her name is Saskia. She's been coming here every year since 2010. She stays in Jingdezhen, and she comes here once a week to Sunbao, to the residency, just to relax and be inspired. And what she takes from Jingdezhen is just the culture of the people and the food and everything.
The moment I set foot on the airport on Jingdezhen, I become a different person. So that makes that I invent totally new things for my work.
She comes here to learn and to bring back some of her drawings and the sculpture that she's made here to the Netherlands, where she's from, to share it with people. It's something that her patrons love.
So going abroad, especially to this place, I chose this place especially for my growth as an artist.
Today we went to the Jingkang village, which is an area outside of Jingdezhen and a very historic, ancient part of Jingdezhen as well, where the Song and Five Dynasties kiln site. The mountain is surrounded with these kilns that they had built into the mountain, and as we walked in, I really got a sense of the amount of clay and the richness of the soil on the mountain. The first site that we came to was a mine, and the mine was where they harvested a certain type of clay that had celadon in it, which is a type of clay that has kind of a shadowy blue color when it's fired. And before, when they were talking about this kind of clay as being a blue, like an imitation or fake jade color, and I had no idea what that meant until this trip, when I saw the actual stone that makes this type of clay. In a museum, you would look at it and think that it was a blue glaze, but on further inspection today, I noticed that the clay body was actually a blue color. After we saw the mine where the clay is from, I got to walk a little bit more, and we saw just these little pieces of ancient ceramics kind of littering the sides of the trail. We still saw some old kilns that were still in use, and these types of kilns were dug into the sides of the mountains. And I think also the clay from the earth helps to insulate the kilns as well. Master Huang even took me up along the side of an ancient kiln to show me some areas where there was a lot of pieces of ancient pottery.
The
5 dynasties?
对对对，还有80个呢，有80的。
Yeah, it's a different piece here. He
对。
said it's a big pot, but it looks like many different pieces kind of melded together. It almost looks like just a stone, but you can tell, and you can see white ceramics. This particular kiln is a dragon kiln. So it's a long shape and it's built into the mountain. The back is a chimney area and it's very, very well preserved. It's one of the best preserved sites that we know of in this area. So that we know too, there are about 12 kilns in the area, but there could still be more uncovered in this region. Master Huang came here after he graduated college to study about porcelain and ceramics. He would come to this region to investigate and learn about the kilns and to also look at the actual broken pieces that are laden around this area. It's not a protected site, and Master Huang is petitioning and hoping to get it to be protected and preserved as a cultural historical site. Also, as we were going, we saw piles of ceramics, leftover shards of ancient ceramics, and pieces that were used in the kiln to protect the ceramics as they were firing to come out with that clean blue color. And it was just mountains and mountains of old pieces of ancient ceramics. And as we were stepping on them, I was just thinking, like, I felt humbled by the experience to be exploring such an ancient relic of culture here. While we were trekking on the countryside, we got to pick up different little pieces of the ancient pottery, and this is an example of one. And you can see some of the details and the clay body as well, which is how I got to learn about the different clay bodies that they have. But it was also just really fun to think that I could bring home something that was so ancient and something that has such unique history as well. We came back into Jingdezhen and we got to see a school, the Jingdezhen Ceramic Institute, where Master Huang went to college from 1962 to 1966. And it was here that he got to lay his foundation for his work as an artist. And he started as a porcelain sculptor here at the school where he studied, and we got to see the very room where he worked as a student making sculpture. Master Huang, after graduating from the Jingdezhen Ceramic Institute, went into work at a museum, the Jingdezhen Ceramic Museum, where he worked authenticating as well as replicating of some old ancient pieces. Master Huang worked at the museum for 28 years. He also gained a community there within the ceramic community and continued to grow his craft. Today we went to a place called Yaoli, which is about an hour outside of Jingdezhen. Just very, very gorgeous. It has a river and some waterfalls coming down off the mountain, and it's just very tranquil, open space. So it was really nice, a little break from the city. We came to the ancient town, which is nearby, and we got to walk around the town a little, and I had the chance to finally interview Master Huang.
我家是农村的，我小时候在我的农村里读书。
He started to paint when he was in elementary school, so at a very young age. It was in high school that he began to appreciate more porcelain arts and decided that he wanted to go to college for porcelain ceramics.
香港的一个收藏家，他喜欢我的作品。
In his later time at the museum, he met an art collector from Hong Kong who had actually been collecting his work for quite some time. And he was really inspired by Master Huang's work and offered to pay him $20,000 US to start his business to help him buy a kiln for his own work. After he got the kiln in place, he started his business in 1993 with 12 people. And from there it grew into what it is today, which is a workshop of 300 people working for him in 2 different factories.
现在呀，有现代的创新的陶瓷艺术有2种风格。
So I asked Master Huang how Jingdezhen has changed in the past 2 decades, and he said that it's changed a lot. A lot of artists have been coming into Jingdezhen from all over China, and I assume all over the world as well, as it's a world-renowned place. But people are coming in with new styles and new materials and adding more of abstract art as well.
我的陶瓷作品主要是还是拥护创新，用传统的技法来表现所要表现的题材。
So Master Huang, I asked him if contemporary art has influenced his work, and he said that his passion is in the ancient ceramics and the old style. His method of painting is exactly the same as it was in ancient time, but his subject matter is a little bit different to reflect more of the current time. At the end of the trip, I feel excited. I feel excited about ceramics in general and just my life as an artist. I would say this is a life-changing trip for me, and this experience has been a chance for me to learn more about it and for me to gain more information, which in turn is going to help me just have a better understanding for ceramics as a whole and the history, and I think my approach is going to be totally different.
我学的是陶瓷，爱好的是陶瓷，我的工作是陶瓷，我把陶瓷艺术当作我自己的生命。
Master Huang is 74 years old, and he's been painting on ceramics for a very long time. And what keeps him going is his love and passion for ceramics. And it's something that he's done for so long. It's something that he studied, and it's something that he's still very passionate about, so much so that he feels that painting on ceramics is his life, and porcelain is his life.